This bizarre Japanese man is so desperate for a thrill that he strips completely naked and climbs inside a suitcase, asking his queen to take him out for a walk so he can experience something different. Congratulations, you've once again stumbled across one of those bizarre Japanese dramas while scrolling late at night. Do Zijuan is no longer satisfied with ordinary games and asks his queen to try something more exciting. So he takes off all his clothes, squeezes himself into a suitcase, and lets her push him through a crowded street. The two are happily texting each other when the queen suddenly receives a phone call and steps aside to answer it. At that moment, another man arrives pushing an identical suitcase. After saying a few things on the phone, another man approaches. The two men greet each other, and the man pushing the suitcase walks away. The newcomer looks at the two identical suitcases, thinks for a couple of seconds, and chooses the one closer to him. Inside, Du Zijuan immediately notices that the suitcase is suddenly moving much faster, and he senses that something is wrong. He unzips it slightly and is horrified to see a strange man staring back at him. His heart nearly stops. Du Zijuan is about to run for parliament, and if anyone discovers a future politician wandering around naked inside a suitcase, his public image will be completely ruined. Meanwhile, the queen has no idea what happened. She happily returns to the suitcase, teasing him softly as usual before cheerfully pushing it away. Unbeknownst to her, Du Zijuan's suitcase has been transferred to someone else and taken into an empty room. Du Zijuan carefully listens to the conversation outside and realizes that the couple in the room seem to be discussing a kidnapping. Suddenly, a masked man comes down the stairs. He has supposedly kidnapped the couple's son, and the parents have come to deliver the ransom. Du Zijuan immediately realizes that he is in serious trouble. If the kidnapper opens the suitcase to check the ransom, he will be exposed. But how could he possibly explain why he is naked inside a suitcase? As if his fears weren't enough, things quickly get worse. The husband pushes the suitcase toward the kidnapper and says that it contains 100 million yen, begging him to release their son. Just as Du Zijuan feared, the kidnapper demands to inspect the ransom first. Du Zijuan's mind races. He wanted to experience something thrilling, but getting involved in an actual kidnapping is definitely taking things too far. Outside, the husband tries to confirm that his son is safe, but the kidnapper becomes furious and kicks the suitcase over. Du Zijuan is thrown around inside and nearly loses his senses, but the impact suddenly gives him an idea. The best thing to do in this situation is call the police. Losing his reputation would be bad enough, but losing his life would be even worse. So he immediately calls the police. The officer tells him to calm down and asks for the name of the kidnapped person. Du Zijuan says he doesn't know. The officer asks where the kidnapped person is. Again, he doesn't know. Then he is asked what his relationship is with the victim. He says they have no relationship. The officer becomes suspicious and asks where Du Zijuan is. He says he doesn't know. The officer then asks what he can see around him. Du Zijuan admits that he can't see anything. With absolutely no useful information, the police assume it is a scam call and hang up without hesitation. Just then, the queen sends him a message asking whether he is enjoying himself inside the suitcase. Du Zijuan desperately tries to ask her for help, but she assumes he is simply flirting with her. No matter how hard he tries to explain the situation, she thinks everything is part of their game. Du Zijuan is completely desperate. He has no way to explain what is happening, while outside, the kidnappers are already lifting the suitcase to open it and inspect the ransom. Suddenly, Du Zijuan notices something outside the window. Someone appears to be watching from outside, making him suspect that the couple has already called the police. He assumes the police have arrived and thinks he is finally about to be rescued. But when the husband hears the kidnapper threaten to kill his son, he suddenly charges forward and tries to overpower him. Unfortunately, the kidnapper is far more ruthless than expected and slashes the husband's leg with a knife. Du Zijuan has no idea what is happening outside, but he suddenly remembers his current situation. If the police arrive and find him naked inside a suitcase, he will have no way to explain himself. His strange hobby will become public, and there is no chance he could continue his political campaign. Just as he is about to break down, the queen sends another message. She has finally opened the original suitcase and discovered that Du Zijuan is gone. However, she assumes he secretly escaped and jokingly threatens to punish him next time. Outside, the kidnapper is holding the husband hostage and shouting toward the window. Du Zijuan believes the police could storm in at any moment. He starts imagining what he will say if they find him. He could claim that the kidnappers stripped him naked and stuffed him inside the suitcase. Maybe he could even gain sympathy from the public and turn the embarrassing incident into something that helps his election campaign. He is almost impressed with his own cleverness. But then he hears the kidnapper's voice again. Something about it sounds strangely familiar. He quietly opens the suitcase and takes another look. What he sees leaves him completely stunned. The kidnapper is actually his own son, Kenichi. Just 1 week earlier, Du Zijuan had been constantly pressuring his son to find a proper job. His wife tried to defend Kenichi, but Du Zijuan acted as if he didn't hear her. She even asked what time he would be home the following Wednesday, but he simply said he wasn't sure. He had completely forgotten that the day was their wedding anniversary. All he could think about was how having a son without a proper job might damage his image during the election. He repeatedly called Kenichi useless and accused him of doing nothing except asking his parents for money. At the time, Kenichi said he would find his own way to make money. Do Zijuan never imagined that his son's way of making money would involve kidnapping. If anyone discovered this, his entire career would be destroyed. He quickly sends a message to his wife, begging her to stop their son and take him away before the police arrive. But he has no idea that his wife is already packing her belongings. Years of being ignored by her husband have left her heartbroken. She writes a farewell letter, removes her wedding ring, and prepares to leave him for good. She completely ignores Du Zijuan's messages. While Du Zijuan is desperately trying to figure out how to save his family, the situation outside suddenly takes an unbelievable turn. Both the husband and Du Zijuan are stunned when the truth is finally revealed. Chika had already betrayed her workaholic husband after becoming attracted to the handsome and energetic Kenichi. She planned to fake the kidnapping of her own son, trick her husband into handing over a large amount of money, and then run away with Kenichi. After all, her husband was extremely wealthy, so she assumed he wouldn't bother calling the police over the money. Unfortunately, she had underestimated him. When Kenichi also admits that he was involved, Du Zijuan is completely devastated. Outside, the husband desperately asks Chika why she would betray him when he had enough money to last several lifetimes. Kenichi gives him the answer. His father had become so cold toward his family that all he cared about was work. He had completely forgotten that a career and money were supposed to be tools for making his family happy. Those words hit the husband hard, but they hit Du Zijuan even harder because he realizes that he is exactly the kind of father Kenichi is talking about. The husband, consumed by anger, begins fighting Kenichi. Soon, Kenichi has a knife pressed against his father's neck, and it looks like a tragedy is about to happen. Suddenly, a noise comes from inside the suitcase. The three men freeze and turn toward it in disbelief. Slowly, the suitcase begins to open, and Du Zijuan crawls out completely naked. He has no time to worry about their shocked expressions. His only concern is calming his son down before Kenichi makes a terrible mistake. Du Zijuan claims that he discovered Kenichi's kidnapping plan a long time ago, so he deliberately hid inside the suitcase to monitor everything. As for why he was naked, he simply claims that the suitcase was too hot, so he took off his clothes. His explanation somehow sounds reasonable to him, but the reactions of the others are strange. Du Zijuan still doesn't realize that something is wrong and continues trying to win his son over with love. He apologizes for being cold and arrogant in the past and asks Kenichi to understand the difficulties of being a parent. He explains that if Kenichi were the one being kidnapped, he would be devastated, and the same would be true for the parents of the supposed victim. That is why kidnapping is wrong. But Kenichi doesn't need to worry, because Du Zijuan says he will take responsibility for the kidnapping himself. Kenichi is moved to tears. He never imagined that his father loved him enough to sacrifice himself for him. However, the time, place, and circumstances don't seem right, and Kenichi realizes that his father has completely misunderstood the situation. He tries several times to interrupt him, but Du Zijuan is caught up in an emotional outpouring of love for his son. He even prepares to hug him. Then he turns around and finally discovers the truth. His son had actually listened to his advice and found a job as a stage actor. Everything that happened had simply been part of a theater performance, and the entire audience had been sitting there watching him. Du Zijuan had just turned himself into the biggest joke in the theater. He quickly borrows a set of clothes from a security guard and has no idea how he can possibly explain why he crawled naked out of a suitcase. But his son stops him and tells him that none of that matters. Kenichi is simply happy that, whatever the reason, his father was willing to abandon everything and protect him. That alone is enough to make him feel loved. Just then, Du Zijuan's wife suddenly walks through the door. She is shocked to see her husband there and even more confused by his strange appearance. Du Zijuan awkwardly tries to figure out how to explain himself, but Kenichi quickly comes to his rescue. He tells his mother that his father has prepared a special surprise for their wedding anniversary. Even Du Zijuan never expected that excuse, so he has no choice but to go along with it. His wife immediately becomes overjoyed. And in the end, the bizarre adventure that started with a naked man hiding inside a suitcase somehow turns into an unexpected anniversary surprise.